Hi, everybody. We're going to get started in just a couple of minutes as people are starting to come into this session. My name is Morgan Taylor. I'm one of the organizers at Jewish Business World, and I'm very excited to have with us today Frank Dippold. Frank Dippold is the VP of Sales at VanDyk Mortgage. He's also the founder of the Velocity of Money Workshop. He's personally closed over $1 billion in loans and has been buying and selling real estate since 1995. Through his work at the Velocity of Money Workshop, Frank has instructed over 1,000 new and established investors with the tools and strategies to succeed at residential real estate investment. So today, Frank will be sharing with us how to capitalize and take advantage of residential investment opportunities. So as everyone's coming in, make sure that you're engaging. We have a chat. You can ask questions, and throughout the presentation, Frank can answer your questions. We'll also have a Q&A portion at the end. And Frank, we're really excited and honored to have you here. Without further ado, let's welcome Frank.
Hey, everybody. How you doing? So, Morgan, I can't see the chat in my view, so if you get some chat questions, just jump in and I'll answer the questions.
Perfect.
Cool. Well, thanks for coming, everybody. I think you're going to learn a lot. It seems like, 5 years ago, Morgan, but it's not. It was only probably 5 months ago that we were doing these seminars with 150, 200 people physically in the room. So this is a new world we're in, but I think a more efficient world. We all don't have to drive and park and deal with all that stuff. So we can learn and then go get a cup of coffee in our kitchen for half of us. So I'm going to get started. The premise of this seminar is that residential real estate, in my opinion, 3 properties, 4 properties, is the way to get wealthy in America. Why? Because I'm going to show you some things like the power and the leverage of using the bank's money. Since 2008, everybody thinks it's really hard to get a loan. And people are afraid of mortgages. People are afraid of debt. But I'm here to show you that, debt as an asset used wisely versus debt where you have to pay your own mortgage or your own bills on your primary residence are 2 very different things, right? So in the bottom of this first screen, it says, follow the proper yield and structure. I'm going to teach everybody what a good real estate investment looks like. So everybody wants to get involved in real estate. People watch the DIY shows and it all looks cool, and no one knows where to start. People come to me after having come to 5 seminars and spending $10, $20, $30,000, and they don't know any more than before they started those seminars. When they come to mine, the only complaint I get, Morgan will attest to this, is it's actually too much information. I've had people come 5, 6, 7 times in a row because they feel like they learn more and more every time. And the material really doesn't change. It's just a matter of digesting the information that you're taught. So on the bottom of here, of this slide, it says, follow the proper yield and structure. I'm going to show you that. And also buy because the spreadsheet looks nice, meaning we don't buy in an area that seems cool or hip or warm weather. We buy in an area that gives us the cash flow. And yield and structure is what shows us that cash flow. So let's get started. We're going to rock and roll with some cool slides. As we said, if you guys have any questions in the meantime, hit me up and we'll go from there. So we're going to show you how to buy 3 properties using the bank's money and pay them off in 20 years or less using the tenant's money. I mean, what's better than that, right? Regardless of where you are today, we do have an answer and a solution for you, meaning somebody could have banged up credit and no money. And that might mean you can't buy today, but we can get you on this journey to get to the place where you can buy. And then you're going to start to see the acceleration of the paying off the loan, the tenant's cash flow, and all the things that come with buying real estate. So quick story, stock market crash 1929. Why is America afraid of mortgages? Back in 1929, the savings and loan banks actually, when they were in financial distress, and so was the rest of the country, would go to the homeowner and say, you have to pay off your mortgage right now. We need the money. And there was no rule that said they didn't have to do that. So what happened with the homeowner who didn't even have a job at the time was they would lose their house. So that was probably grandma and grandpa for a lot of us, or for some of you younger folks, it might have been great grandma and great grandpa. So mortgages in America were like bad, scary. Pay off your mortgage as quick as possible. But I see so many people paying off their mortgage as quick as possible, but they're also risking the rest of their portfolio, meaning they're not saving money. They're building up credit card debt, which I'm going to address. And what I'm here to say is mortgages used properly are a huge asset. Now, in 1937, FDR in the New Deal, who was president at the time, made it so that the term and condition of that mortgage cannot change. If you get a 30-year fixed at 3.5%, as long as you're making your payments every month, that can never change. The loan can be sold to another servicer, but the terms and condition of that loan cannot change. So that's good. So we're safe there. All right, on to the next one. Now, here's what Americans do. They get a job after college, put money in a 401k, if anything. They buy a single family or a condo first. They have a kid or two, start putting money in a 529. They panic when the children are in high school because they realize that the $200 a month they're putting in a 529 isn't going to pay the $60,000 a year for college or more. We borrow tons of student loan money, either in our name or the student's name. And then our kids graduate college and like, wow, we got through college. But now we're in our mid-50s and we still don't have any money saved. So by the way, at this point during the talk, I say to everybody, I'm not trying to make you miserable. I'm just trying to show you patterns. And then I promise there's going to be solutions, but I'm trying to set the stage for everybody to understand sort of what the pattern is. And I'm sure many, many of you are going to go, oh man, this is me. And if you're like 28 or 30 and a young millennial and you don't own real estate yet, believe me when I tell you I'm 49, time flies like that. So you got to set the stage now to set your life up and be responsible. All right. Also, the student loan crisis. It's $1.5 trillion in debt. 44 million Americans have outstanding student loan debt, right? And here's another pattern. Go to college, borrow money. We get out and we're like, oh, it's okay. They're saying I could defer the payments. Does everybody understand what negative amortization is? Negative amortization is when you pay a minimum payment and there's actually a balance being added every month. So if they let you pay a $100 payment and the real payment's $300, it's actually $200 a month is going on top of the principal. So you graduate college with $80,000 in student loan debt and you think it's okay to do a deferment. And by the time you want to start paying that debt back 3 years later, the debt's now $100,000, right? So that's bad. When we calculate loans, we take 1% of the total loan balance if the loan's in deferment. So that hurts somebody going to get a loan. So you don't have to memorize the guidelines. My intent is to say to everybody, you're not getting away with anything by not paying your student loans in full. Get yourself consolidated, or at least if it's only one or two loans, pay back the full payment. Don't pay back the minimum payment. Don't pay back the deferred payment because that's actually adding to your balance. Okay? Now, 401k. Did you realize if we put $600 a month in a 401k for 30 years, which is $7,200 a year, at an 8% return with a 1.5% cost to manage, because there's always a cost to manage, that'll grow to $715,000, which is a lot of money. But if we only grow at a 5% return with a 1.5% cost, it's $383,000. So you're putting $600 a month away your whole life until retirement. And if you have $715,000 in retirement at 5% distribution in an annuity, it's going to give you $35,000 a year in retirement. So some of you might be like, "Oh, that's not terrible." No, it's not terrible. But I'm going to show you how the power and leverage of real estate gets you much further along. All right. So just paint the picture here, ladies and gentlemen. Now, some of you are like, "Oh man, do I have enough cash saved?" Maybe a little older. Is there enough equity in my home? Where are my retirement savings going to be? Do I have credit card debt? What do I owe my primary? And where will Social Security be? Now, for some of you younger folks, if none of this matters to you, It will at some point, and I'm going to show you why real estate is going to help you make that look much prettier. Many people in the audience, when I put this slide up, start to squirm in their seat because they're like, man, I'm not, it's like going to the doctor, like, hey, doc, what kind of shape am I in? And as we help you with real estate, we're going to get you in better and better shape financially. So let's compare apples to apples. Let's set the stage on financial planner versus real estate. If you have $200,000 with a financial planner, that equals $200,000. But $200,000 at a 5% return gives you $10,000 a year in income. But what if you had that $200,000 and you invested in real estate, even at a 20% down, which we're going to show you much better and lower down payments. But even at 20% down, it allows you to buy $1 million in real estate. So $1 million in real estate, right? Same 200,000, you just leverage the bank's money at a 5% return. Now gives you 50,000 a year. So see column on the left, same money, 10,000 return. Column on the right, $1 million in real estate, 50,000. Now, what if you had $1 million at a 5% return, equals 50,000 a year? But if you had $1 million and you invested in real estate, you could buy $5 million worth of real estate, which then gives you a 5% return, which is 250,000. This does not include the compounding value of interest, which I'm going to show you later. So if you have $1 million, why not buy $5 million in real estate? Pretty simple math. Now, understanding cash flow. So you want to invest in real estate. How do I do it? What's the premise? Cash flow and yield is most important. I have another slide where I'm going to show you how to calculate yield on an investment property. Never buy for appreciation, meaning that's a bonus. Never be like, hey, it's a real up and coming area. This is cool. I'm okay losing $500 a month on this property because I know it's going to be worth $500,000 more in 5 years. That we don't know if that's going to happen. It could happen, but you always buy for cash flow. Also, when you're a real estate investor, this is down the road. And if you have real estate, I can show you how your accountant may or may not be helping you. Let me give you a quick example. A lot of times real estate investors write off repairs. So you bring in $30,000 in rents, you have $10,000 in repairs, you have $10,000 or whatever in carrying costs, taxes, all these things, interest on your mortgage. And the property may end up losing money. And so I'll talk to a W-2 employee who invests in some real estate and they'll be like, yeah, make $100,000 a year. Oh, great. Okay. I think I can get you a loan for this much. They're going to go buy their dream house. But then when I get their Schedule E, the accountant wrote off $30,000 against the real estate, and now they only net $70,000 income, hurts the qualification for the next property. Depreciation is amazing because you offset depreciation against rental gains. Okay. So if you bring in the $30,000 and you depreciate the property by $30,000, you don't pay tax to the government, but I'm allowed to give you depreciation back in underwriting. So that $100,000, if you depreciate your real estate by 30, you actually don't take a hit at all. You're making a net of 100. You're not going to memorize that. But the point is, many real estate investors come to me and don't even know what their accountants do and are frustrated because they can't get the next property. I show them how to strategize on their tax returns to do it right. Okay. Also, on the Schedule E and on the cash flow evaluation, another bonus is that your tenant is amortizing the loan down for you. So my yield calculation is based on cash flow. It doesn't even include the amortization. But once you include the amortization, it's an even better formula. Cool. So Morgan, do we have any questions up to this point? All right, we lost Morgan, I think. All right, so these principles will apply to everyone. We'll keep rocking and rolling. So, okay. The art of the fixer-upper. So I love the young millennial couple, a husband and a wife, say they're 30 years old, and the husband's all gung-ho to buy his first property. He's like, I want a fixer-upper. And I'm like, you want a fixer-upper, huh? Are you handy? No. Do you have any cash to fix up the property? No. So we make a joke of that, right? So there's actually something called a renovation loan where you can buy a property for $400,000. Look at the middle of the screen. Borrow $200,000 worth of renovations, so your total project is $600,000, and you put as little as 3.5% down, or $21,000 on the whole thing. So think about that for a minute. It could be a 1 to 4 unit property, owner occupied. You can borrow $200,000, have a contractor do all the work, be in a brand new Mac Daddy multifamily that you're going to live in, and only be out of pocket $21,000. Isn't that great? So now I've just simplified it. There's things that we have to do in the loan, like approve the contractor, get a HUD consultant, all that stuff. But think about this for a minute. If you found a 3 or 4 family property that you were willing to live in for a year, and you gutted the kitchens and the bathrooms, it increased the rents by $500 per unit because you did the renovation, and say you borrowed that $200, does anybody know? Does anybody know how much each $100,000 costs per month when you borrow? Right now, it's about $400 to $450 a month. So you've added $800 to $900 to the mortgage, but maybe on 3 units, you've gotten $1,500 more in rents. And I'm going to show you an appreciation chart with rents, and you're going to see the power and the leverage of outpacing inflation, which is really powerful. All right. So the renovation loan is a really good loan to fix up. And also, by the way, a lot of times those are the properties that you get good deals on because there might have been a foreclosure or a short sale and the bank just wants to dump the property. And what happens is those are the ones that need the work. We have the contractor do the work, you fix it up, and now we have a good property. When you buy retail, right, when a real estate investor already got in there, is not a great deal. It's a great deal when the property needs work, and this is the way to do it.
Frank, I have 2 questions for you.
Sure.
First, when you coach real estate investors, do you help them find these properties that, maybe in their area?
Yeah, good question.
Perfect for the renovation loan?
So the answer is not me specifically. Like I stay in my track of doing the loans, but we have a great group of realtors in New York, New Jersey, Florida, California that we work with. We're tight with a lot of the guys at EXP. We're tight with a lot of guys at Keller Williams. There's a group of Keller Williams out of Clifton, New Jersey, who's heavy into real estate investing. They actually find properties. They wholesale properties. They show people how to do it from the real estate perspective. So the answer is yes, not me directly, but I have a lot of partners that I partner up with that help us find the right properties.
That's awesome. Good to know that your team does that. The other question that we have here in the chat is, where do you get a renovation loan from, and what kind of credit do you need for that?
Well, you get the renovation loan from me. We always make a joke at the seminar. I'm the only one in the country that does them. That's actually not true. My company is Fannie, Freddie, Ginnie Direct, which means that we sell straight to the 3 main regulatory lending bodies across America. There's no aggregator. There's no middleman. We have 23 underwriters in the company, and we do it. Now, a renovation loan, my team handles all the upfront application. I handle all the coaching. I explain it. We approve the contractor. We underwrite the loan. We approve the loan. We close it. And then we manage what they call draws, because there's draws of money that has to go to the contractor. So the benchmark on credit score is technically 620. And then there's loan limits. So in New York and New Jersey, for example, for a single family property, you could borrow up to $765,000. On a multifamily property, say it's a 4 unit, it's like 1.2 million that you could borrow. So it's technically 620 credit score. There is exceptions made down to 600, but the higher you go on credit, the better the interest rate is. I will tell you that there's 2 types of renovation loans. There's an FHA, Ginnie Mae. FHA and Ginnie Mae are the same thing. 203K, and there you only need a 640 gives you the best rate, and that's great. And then Fannie Mae came out with a renovation loan that competes with FHA, and there you need a little higher credit, but either one works depending on the scenario. All right. Cool. So are you guys ready for the sizzle? Because this is going to get people real excited. Usually in the audience, I'll ask people, raise your hand if you don't own any real estate. This is how you can buy $1 million worth of real estate for less than $40,000 in 3 years. Okay, this is something that I have that I created called 3, 2, 1 and done. And here we go. So we're a millennial, we're working, we own no real estate. In year one, we're going to purchase a 3 or 4 family, owner occupied. Say, for example, that is $400,000. Now, depending on where you are, if you're in Brooklyn, you're going to laugh at this and say, where am I getting anything for $400,000? But if you're in Woodbridge, New Jersey, you can find a 3-family all day long for $400,000. So it just depends. This is just an example. It's not necessarily your market, but this is just an example. $400,000, 3.5% down, $14,000 out of pocket. There's something called a seller concession for closing costs where we can include the closing costs. Now, this is an FHA owner-occupied loan. You have to live in it a year. If the property needs work, we can do that renovation loan that I mentioned. And after 1 year, you're allowed to move out of this property and you're allowed to move into the next property. Then in year 2, you go 2-family house, $300,000, 5% down, $15,000 out of pocket. Year 3, if you want to buy your single family that you're going to live in, $350,000 loan, 3% down, $10,500. Now, say for example, these numbers were $700,000 or $800,000 for the 3-family, or $700,000 or $800,000 for the 2-family, and $600,000 or $700,000 for the 1-family. That's fine. That just means that maybe out of pocket all in, you might be $80,000, but still at that point you'd be getting $2 million worth of real estate for $80,000, which is ridiculous to have an asset of $2 million for only $80,000. Now, say somebody says to me, "Hey, I got 20 grand to my name. What do I do?" Well, if you buy the right 3 or 4 family, you could put the money down on the first property. With the right 3 or 4 family cash flow, you may actually pay nothing to live in the 3 or 4 family because your tenants are paying all the costs, or you might pay, say, $500 a month. And in that case, you can save $1,000 a month or $1,500 a month for the next property. And even if it takes you 2 years, your tenants are still paying the mortgage for you. Okay? So any questions on that? Because this alone, if you follow my plan and understand this, you will be a millionaire in 20 years or less, because the next phase is to show you what the right cash flow is, how to pay it off 10 years early and have it paid. Now imagine a property that you brought in $4,000 or $5,000 a month with no mortgage. That's exciting.
That's so exciting, Frank. We do have a question here before we move on. When you apply for a loan for a residential investment property, is the criteria for being approved dependent on your personal income, the cash flow of the property, in interest, or both? Like, how do you get approved for something like this? So
personal income, yes. And if it's a 3 or 4 family, we could take the rents that we get from the property, and we could take 75% of those rents and we add that to your income. So say somebody makes, I'm just making up numbers, $5,000 a month of income on W-2, and the property brings in another $4,000 a month. I could use 75% of the $4,000. Let's say it's $3,000. So I use the $5,000 that they're making, and I use the $3,000 they're getting on the property, and that helps them qualify. If they're not working, then theoretically, if the property had enough cash flow, they could qualify. But most of the time, you need some income on your own job in order to qualify.
Okay, so it's a combination.
Correct.
Great.
So if you guys have individual situations or questions, we're going to be in the chat. I'm not done, but we're going to be in the chat. You can set up personal one-on-one consultations with me, Paul, or Matt, or Morgan, who's on the call. My loan officers, I wanted to mention, are in the chat as well, so they can answer any questions for you. We've done this for many, many, many people across the country. So let's move on to the next slide. Okay. Now, some people will be like, "Hey, it's impossible to find a multifamily." And I'm like, well, it doesn't have to be a multifamily. The first 3 or 4 properties I actually purchased were single families. So then I created a product called Single Family Fast Lane. Why? there's actually more inventory in single families, much more, like 95% more. You can still do renovation loans. The down payment is lower. You could do 3.5% or 3% down on single families, but on the next single family and the next single family, you can continue to do the 3% or 5% down, where it gets a little more steep as you go along with the multis. And it theoretically, if you were in town A, which is not as nice as town B, and town B, which is not as nice as town C, you can make the argument of, I'm going to live here because you are, and then I'm going to upgrade towns and live in this house and then make it a rental. Then I'm going to move out of here and I'm going to move over here. So the goal is to be in these properties for very little money down. Why? Because if it's an investment property, it's usually 15, 20, or 25% down. If you live in these properties for just a year, you can get away with 3% or 5% down every time. So that's how we're getting you into residential real estate for not a ton of cash. Okay. So single family fast lane is another exciting way to go. All right. Here's a cool slide. So I see this question: is your strategy exclusively based on owner occupied? No, I have a whole calculation for real estate investors, which starts on this slide right now. And I'll also show people who already own a single family or a condo when the right property is to purchase, like this example. Calculating yield on an investment property. This is important. So here's what we do. We take the down payment needed. So in this example, it's a $350 purchase, 20% down, because this is a two-family property. A $280,000 loan at 4.5%. By the way, rates are a lot better than that right now. Your principal, interest, tax, and insurance is $2,210. That's all your payments. But your rent is $3,000. Your rent roll or your profit is $790 a month. That equals $9,480 a year. So the next one says cash flow equal rent rolls minus expenses, including mortgage, taxes, insurance, and maintenance. If we divide the cash flow, this sounds like a lot, I know, but once you read the slide twice, it's no big deal. You divide the cash flow by the down payment. So $9,480 divided by $70,000 is a 13.5% yield. My rule of thumb is 11.5% or more is something that you want to look at. By paying the property down in year one, the amortization, which I mentioned earlier, is another $43.21, and your yield, including the amortization, is 19.7%. That's a good investment. That's a guaranteed investment, and a financial planner cannot compete with me when it comes to these numbers because your tenant is paying this for you. If you pay an additional $350 a month, the loan's paid off in 20 years. Your initial down payment is paid back in 7.3 years by the tenant. And if you follow my plan, by year 20, you'll have no mortgage payment. Your rent will be $4,000, and only your tax payments are due. So in this example, it should be a net of $3,000 to $3,500 a month in cash flow. So that's a lot of information. Did everybody get that? Does that make sense? Awesome.
So what's your ideal yield where you look at this yield after the calculation, you say, this is a good property, this is something I should buy? What's the range of that percentage of the yield?
I tell people at the seminars 11.5% or more. I really want to look at 14, 15, 16% yields, not including the amortization of the loan. So I'd say 13, 14% or more, that's a property worth looking at. You will not lose on that property because there's not only enough money to pay this off in 20 years, but there's also enough money to potentially pay this off in 15 years. And then your net cash flow is tremendous. So in my seminars, our goal is to show people how to buy 3 properties, pay them off in 20 years or less. So in this case, if each property gives you $3,000 to $3,500 a month in cash flow times 3, let's do the math, right? $12,000 a month in cash flow. But we're actually going to take it a step further when I show you the future rent chart. All right, so let's move towards that. Now, usually at the seminars, I say to everybody, If a property has $36,000 a year in rent right now, okay, and it makes $9,480 a year in net rental profit, what do we think the rent will be 20 years from now? Whoop. Okay, so it's 36,000. I was wondering if it would go down or I went across. So 36,000 in rent right now. What will it be 20 years from now at 2.5% inflation to stay on pace with inflation? It's actually a crazy number. Look at year 20. In year 20, it's $53,000 in rent. But what happens to that mortgage payment? It stays the same, right? I mean, taxes might go up a little bit. Well, they will go up a little bit, but it doesn't go up a lot in comparison to your increase in revenue. Look at 30 years. So do we want you to pay this off in 30 years or 20? We talked about doing it in 20. So look at this.
Wait, can you go back for a second?
Yeah.
So that bottom row, by year 30, it's paid off.
Right.
So that's why that net rental profit's incredible. Incredible.
$50,000 in profit in year 30. But somebody in the audience might be 50 years old and go, you know what? I don't have 30 years. I want to do it in 20. So this is great, but let's go to the next one, which is even better. Now, this is by paying $350 a month more, okay, which is, by the way, your tenant's money, right? Because you're making $800 a month on day one profit. So we're taking a little less than half the profit, and look at year 20. No mortgage. All we have is taxes. So like in New York, the values are going to be higher, but the taxes are going to be lower. And one property has $40,000 a year in profit. Look at year 30, as Morgan mentioned, $45,000 in profit. Times 3. That's amazing retirement income. So remember when I talked about the $600 a month for our whole life that we put in a 401k, that's going to give us $35,000 a year in retirement income. What if we invested $40,000 on 3 properties, one time initially, and in 20 years we have $40,000 per property? We're netting $120,000 a year net cash flow to us. And you know what the best part about that is? It lasts into perpetuity. Why? Because we're not taking away from a cash asset. We're just getting rent roll on real estate. So not only is it going to be for you in retirement, but it's going to be for your kids in retirement and their kids and their kids and their kids. So that's powerful numbers.
Wow.
Cool. Now, has anybody heard of the rules of 72? So rules of 72 is you take the interest rate that you earn, in this example 4%, and we divide it into 72. That takes 18 years for your money to double. So if we had $100,000 at 4% return, 18 years later, it'd be $200,000. A $350,000 property today doubles in 18 years to $700,000. So here's what I'm getting at with the next slide. If we owned a primary residence today for $450,000, we somehow got 3 rental properties, each at $350,000, 4% return compounding year over year. I'm not saying that that's going to happen, but it could happen. The rules of 72, these properties double in 18 years. The value of each of our rental properties would be $700,000. The total value of the rental properties would be $2.1 million. By year 18, the total value of our primary residence would be $900,000. By year 20, all properties paid off. We'd have $12,000 to $15,000 a month in residual income. And then I talk about some other product, which I'm not going to discuss today. And we have a $3 million net worth just on our real estate, which is a bonus, with $12,000 to $15,000 a month in cash flow. So that's the power and leverage of using the bank's money to buy the property and the tenant's money to pay off the property. And if you follow my strategy, there's no like these gimmicks that say you don't need credit, you don't need money. That's all nonsense. That's people that are trying to like, you know, get involved in deals with you and take 80% of the deal. This is your own real estate portfolio. All you need is 3 properties. You follow my plan. I coach you all along the way. We do the mortgages. We make sure that you're following your Schedule E and your tax returns properly, and we set you up. And I guarantee once somebody buys 2 or 3 or 4 properties, they usually buy like 6 because they get excited. But I'm here to say that you don't need any more than 3, but you could buy as many as you want as long as you stay with the strategy. So let's go to the next one. So we talked about this, your possible future, 12 to 15,000 a month in cash flow, total net worth over 3.385 million. And this, my friends, is the definition of wealth. The definition of wealth is not necessarily the net worth. It's really, as Robert Kiyosaki says in his book, it's really when your passive income, in this case, real estate, outpaces your monthly overhead at home, meaning you don't have to go to work and you can pay all your bills every month. That's the definition of wealth. Even if it's $1 over, even if your rental real estate gave you $1 more than all of your monthly spending, you're wealthy. I don't care whether you have $1 million in the bank, 30 million in the bank, or 100 grand in the bank. The cash flow is what matters. So here's what buying 3 properties gets you. $28,440 in year 1 in cash flow, $284,400 in 10 years, $568,000 in 20 years, $998 in 30 years, $1.998 in 50 years, and that lasts into perpetuity from generation to generation. So quick story on the Vanderbilts versus the Rothschilds, and then we'll be winding up and I'll take questions. The Vanderbilts in 1920, I think, had over 100 millionaires in their family. The Rothschilds, what they did is they're like the bank in England and they're one of the wealthiest families in the world. What they did is they made their children come to them with business plans, and they had to execute the business plans, and they would give their children a loan that they had to pay back. So they were teaching them to fish instead of giving them a fish. The Rothschilds now are, I think, the wealthiest family in the world, or one of the wealthiest families in the world. And the Vanderbilts, over 100 millionaires in 1920. There's only one left today that's worth more than $1 million. Everyone else in the Vanderbilts have blown the money, right? So we have to learn how to do this so we can teach our children how to do it, because we could retire with $3 million and we could give it to them and they could blow it all. We're better off showing them. I put money in an account for my kids that I pay into every month that hopefully, if I don't have to use it for college, I'm going to give them for their first 3 or 4 family and get them on the way to be a real estate investor. I'll give them the gift for the first one and then get them on the way. And I'll set their lives up forever. So in closing, I love Proverbs, which talks about plans fail for lack of counsel, but with many advisors, they succeed. I feel like I can be an advisor to a lot of people. We love what we do. We love advising people. We've been blessed with knowledge and experience. And believe me, I made a lot of mistakes in real estate when I didn't follow yield, when I didn't follow the right cash flow model, and I did some stupid things when I bought for the wrong reasons. So I'm here to show you how to buy them for the right reasons and the right cash flow. And and this is a time where we can help people, and we can help people become real estate entrepreneurs and real estate millionaires. So thank you, everybody. At this point, we can take some questions, and then we'll finish up.
Frank, can you go to the next slide? I think you had a...
Oh, sorry.
Right.
So free consultation. You guys can do a free 30-minute Zoom meeting with me, Paul, Matt, and we can advise on your personal situation. You can set up a meeting now by going to my Calendly, and it's like going to the doctor. I'll get a checkup from you. I will give you a checkup on finances and say, here's where you're at. You're ready to go today, or you're not ready to go. But wherever you are, we can get you there. And that journey can and will result in a tremendous experience if you follow our plan. It's not a gimmick. It's foolproof if you follow yield and structure.
Awesome. Thank you, Frank. That was so much information, but learned a lot. Wow. I'm excited to...
Great stuff. So the chats will be open. So Morgan, explain to everybody, our room will be open all day.